"Excuse me, sir. Can I help you with something?" The words echoed through the polished, high-ceiling lobby of Ridgeview National Bank. They weren't spoken in kindness. They landed sharp, like an accusation wrapped in customer service. Darius Cole turned slowly. He stood tall, his posture naturally upright, a remnant of his military training. He wore a navy blue suit, cleanly pressed, paired with a modest striped tie. His shoes gleamed. In his hand, he held a crisp government-issued check, $25,000, payable to him. It was part of his veteran pension. He had come simply to deposit it. But to the woman glaring at him from behind the counter, he might as well have walked in holding a crowbar and a ski mask. Melissa Granger, the bank's manager, was in her early 40s. Blonde bob, sharp blazer. The kind of person who took pride in being firm but fair. Yet right now, fairness was the last thing on her mind. She had clocked Darius the second he entered the bank. She didn't like the way he moved with confidence. Didn't like the calm, collected way he waited in line. She didn't even like how quiet he was. "Sir," she said again, stepping forward. "This isn't the check deposit line. What are you doing here?" Darius gave her a polite nod. "I was directed here by your staff. I'm here to deposit this," he said, holding up the check. "It's my monthly pension." Melissa took the check and scanned it with narrowed eyes. She scoffed quietly. "This is the government check?" she asked slowly. "Yes, ma'am," Darius replied, his voice level. "You can verify the routing number. It's from the Department of Veterans Affairs." Melissa didn't move. She stared at the check as if it were radioactive. Then she looked up. "I'm sorry, but this doesn't look real. I've seen scams like this before. Large fake checks. Government logos. Doesn't mean it's legitimate." Darius didn't flinch. "I served 28 years. You're welcome to call the number on the back. There's a verification system." She took a breath, her decision already made. "Sir, I'm going to need you to leave the premises immediately. I'm calling the authorities." "I'm sorry," Darius said, his brow raising ever so slightly. "For trying to deposit my own money?" "I don't have time to argue," she said, reaching for the phone behind the counter. "You're making me uncomfortable, and I don't feel safe. Please exit." People in the bank started to look over. A few pulled out their phones, sensing something was happening. Darius didn't shout, didn't protest. "Do what you need to do," he said simply, and stepped back. As Melissa dialed, her eyes locked on him, not with fear, but with judgment. She didn't see a veteran. She didn't see a man. She saw a problem. But what she didn't know was that a storm was coming, and it wore 4 stars on its shoulders. 911, what's your emergency?" Melissa's voice was tight and breathless as she clutched the receiver. "Yes, this is Ridgeview National Bank. I need officers sent immediately. There's a suspicious individual here trying to deposit what I believe is a fake government check. He's refusing to leave." The dispatcher's voice remained calm. "What does the individual look like?" Melissa glanced at Darius, who was now standing silently near the counter. "Black male, about 6 feet tall, dressed in a suit. Looks aggressive." Darius heard every word. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, his jaw tightening slightly. Not in anger, but in something deeper, disappointment. The kind that builds up after years of being looked at sideways in stores, followed around in malls, talked down to in meetings. The kind of disappointment that comes from knowing your achievements don't change how you're seen by some. "Help is on the way," the dispatcher assured. Melissa hung up and shot Darius another glare. "You can't just walk in with some oversized check and expect me to believe it's real," she said sharply. "You think we're that naive?" Darius stayed calm. "That check is backed by the U.S. Treasury. You can call to verify it." "I don't need to call," she snapped. "The police will handle it." 5 minutes passed. Customers whispered. Some stepped away. A few looked between Darius and Melissa, unsure of what was happening. But still, no one intervened. Then the glass doors burst open. 2 uniformed police officers entered, hands near their belts, eyes scanning the room. One of them barked, "Sir, step away from the counter." Darius turned slowly, holding his hands out slightly to show he wasn't a threat. "I'm not doing anything wrong. That check is mine. My name is Darius Cole. I served in the U.S. Army for 28 years. This is my monthly pension." Melissa interjected quickly. "He has no proof of that. He refused to leave when I asked him. I've seen this kind of scam before." One of the officers, a younger man with a buzz cut, took the check from Darius's hand and began to radio in the numbers. The older officer, however, took a closer look at Darius's ID. His eyes scanned the government-issued identification card, and then he froze. "Sir," he said quietly, "this ID. Is this real?" Darius pulled out a second card, flipping open a weathered leather case. Inside was his military ID. Not just any ID, one that held serious weight. Command Sergeant Major, retired. A top enlisted rank in the United States Army. The officer stepped back, visibly shaken. "Sir, I apologize. I didn't realize." But Melissa wasn't satisfied. "Anyone can fake an ID," she muttered, crossing her arms. "Doesn't prove anything." That moment, when the officer began to doubt her, and when Darius stood without raising his voice, shifted the air in the room. What Melissa didn't realize was that this wouldn't be handled quietly. Help was coming, not just from the police, but from someone she could never have imagined. Melissa's lips curled with disdain as she looked at the check again. The tension in the room thickened like molasses. "You expect me to believe that a man like you gets a pension that big?" she said, laughing bitterly. "What is this, reparations or something?" Her voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. Every syllable carried venom. The moment the word reparations left her mouth, the entire lobby froze. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A mother standing nearby with her daughter clutched her purse tighter and turned away, hurriedly exiting the building. One man in line muttered, "Whoa," under his breath and slowly started recording on his phone. Darius didn't blink. He didn't raise his voice. He had faced bigger enemies in his life. Mortars, IEDs, snipers in the desert. This was just another kind of battlefield, one he had walked through for decades. "I served in Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Bosnia, and a dozen other countries you've probably never even studied," he said calmly, his voice cutting through the room like steel. "That pension didn't fall from the sky. I earned it, with blood, sacrifice, and 3 decades of service." Melissa scoffed again. "Oh, please, save the hero's speech. I've seen people try to scam banks before. Military stories. Tearjerker tales. Doesn't make the check real." One of the officers shifted uncomfortably but didn't say a word. The younger officer had stopped radioing in the check numbers and stood still, uncertain whether to take a side or step back. But someone else had been watching the entire time. Rosa Alvarez, the assistant branch manager. She had been standing quietly behind one of the glass offices, eyes wide, phone gripped tightly in her hand. Young, sharp, and soft-spoken, Rosa had always tried to stay out of trouble. But something about this was different. She stepped forward slowly. "Melissa," she said, her voice steady. "I just checked our internal client system. Mr. Cole is in our records. He's not only a client, he's a platinum veteran client." Melissa turned sharply. "What?" Rosa continued. "He's had this account for 12 years. Never missed a payment. No overdrafts. No red flags. That check matches previous deposits. And," she looked up, "there's a note in his file. He was personally approved for veteran platinum status by the former regional manager." The color drained from Melissa's face. Still, she tried to push back. "That can't be right. Maybe there's a mistake." "No mistake," Rosa said, firmer now. "It's him." Melissa's eyes darted around. For the first time, her confidence wavered. Her voice cracked. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "You didn't ask," Rosa replied simply. But before Melissa could say another word, the air in the lobby shifted. The doors to the bank slowly opened again. And this time, it wasn't police. It wasn't a customer. A sleek black car had pulled up out front. A tall, commanding figure in full military dress uniform stepped inside. Chest full of medals, shoulders adorned with 4 gleaming stars. Every jaw in the room dropped. And Melissa looked like she had just seen a ghost. The bank's glass doors opened with a soft chime, but the energy that swept in behind them was anything but soft. Every person in Ridgeview National Bank turned toward the entrance as a tall man in full U.S. Army dress uniform stepped through. His polished shoes clicked against the marble floor. Medals glinted across his chest. But it was the 4 silver stars on each shoulder that sent a hush across the room. General Marcus Ellison, a living legend, decorated in combat, honored in the Pentagon, a household name in military circles. He was the kind of man who'd spoken at presidential inaugurations and briefed heads of state. But in that moment, he wasn't here as a symbol of national pride. He was here for Darius. "Command Sergeant Major Cole," the general said with a deep, commanding voice that cut through the silence. I came as soon as I heard. Darius turned, a rare smile breaking across his otherwise calm face. He straightened instinctively and offered a firm handshake that turned into a warm embrace. "Good to see you, General," he said. The two men, weathered by war, bonded by duty, stood like giants among whispers. To anyone watching, it was clear, this wasn't just a friendship. It was loyalty forged in the fire of combat. Melissa staggered back from the counter, her mouth slightly open. "General? Wait. What's happening? Who is he?" General Ellison turned slowly to face her. His posture was regal, but his eyes were sharp. He scanned her face, not with anger, but with quiet judgment. "I was informed that a decorated veteran, my former right hand in combat, was publicly humiliated, accused of fraud, and nearly arrested for trying to deposit a pension check." Melissa's voice trembled. I didn't know who he was. He looked suspicious. It's bank policy to flag large checks." "No," the general said, cutting her off with authority that left no room for argument. "It wasn't policy that made you pick up the phone. It was prejudice. You saw a black man, well-dressed, calm, and confident, and that made you uncomfortable. That's what you saw." "I didn't mean," Melissa stammered. "You didn't care to mean," he replied. "You didn't ask for verification. You didn't check the system. You judged him the second he walked through that door." The bank was still silent. Customers stood frozen. Phones were recording. A few employees had tears in their eyes. Darius didn't speak. He didn't need to. The general's presence spoke volumes. Rosa stood behind the counter now, her eyes locked on Melissa, not with contempt, but with deep disappointment. "You disrespected not just a man," General Ellison continued. "You disrespected a soldier, a leader, a hero." Melissa's hands shook. She took a small step back. "I was just doing my job." The general nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time someone else did it better." No one clapped. No one cheered. But the weight of those words hung in the air like a verdict. And Justice had just walked through the front door in full uniform. The fallout was instant. A bystander, one of the first to pull out their phone, had been recording since the police entered. From Melissa's 911 call, to Darius's quiet strength, to General Ellison's powerful words, the entire incident was caught on video. Within an hour, the clip had made its way to social media. By nightfall, the headline was everywhere. "Bank manager calls cops on black veteran. Gets put in her place by 4-star general." The video hit 10 million views in less than 24 hours. It wasn't just viral. It was electric, igniting outrage, sparking national conversation, and drawing attention from veterans groups, civil rights organizations, and news outlets alike. The hashtags #VeteranDarius and #RidgeviewRacism trended globally. People didn't just see a man disrespected, they saw a mirror held up to society. Darius, calm and composed, became a symbol of quiet dignity under fire. General Ellison, righteous and unshaken, was hailed for saying what so many had wanted to say for years. And Melissa? The bank moved fast. By the next morning, Ridgeview National Bank had issued a statement. "We deeply regret the events that occurred at our flagship branch. The treatment of Mr. Darius Cole was unacceptable and does not reflect our values. The employee involved has been placed on immediate administrative leave pending termination. We apologize to Mr. Cole and to all who were hurt by this incident." But it wasn't enough to stop the storm. Protesters gathered outside the bank's front doors. Veterans, young and old, stood shoulder to shoulder with activists holding signs. "Honor all who served. Being black is not a crime. He fought for us. Why didn't you?" Melissa's photo was leaked online. Her name trended for all the wrong reasons. She tried to issue her own apology, but the public saw right through it. The damage was done. She was officially fired within 48 hours. Meanwhile, Rosa Alvarez, the assistant manager who had stepped up to defend Darius, found herself being celebrated. Not only did Ridgeview promote her to interim branch manager, but she was also interviewed on local news for her integrity. As for Darius, he declined dozens of interview requests until one. At a national veterans conference in Washington, D.C., Darius took the stage beside General Ellison. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned in. But Darius didn't speak to condemn. He spoke to uplift. "Respect should never be filtered through the color of our skin," he said. "I fought for a country that still struggles to see past race. But I still believe we can be better. I still believe in the idea of America. An America where my grandkids won't have to explain that they earned their place in the world, where dignity isn't questioned at the door. The room rose in a standing ovation, and General Ellison, stoic and battle-hardened, wiped away a tear. Back at Ridgeview Bank, a new plaque was mounted at the entrance beneath the American flag. We honor all who've served, with gratitude, with respect, without exception. And for once, they finally meant it.